Hello there and welcome to another super licensed super stream. Can I say it's a super stream? I think I can say that on my own show. This is a new super stream. You might have noticed if you're looking at your screen and who I'm talking to and looking at, I've got some friends with me today. Joining me, the president and vice president of the Logan Sargent fan club, Patrick and Dan from the Midfield Pod. Guys, how are you?
I'm well. Thanks for having us, Rod.
Anytime. It's an absolute pleasure.
Great to be here.
I will try. I'm from Australia. I know that you're from the States. You're from United States. I will try and speak slowly. I will also try to remember your names. But that said, I'm Australian. I probably will just refer to you both as the C word. So just be ready for that.
I love it. Perfect.
You're a showman. You can do whatever you want.
I've been waiting for this moment all my life.
I did have a coworker visit once who was from the States, and he was like, "Is it true you just call everyone the C word over here?" And I was like, "I mean, kinda, yeah." So we just went out drinking. He was just walking down the street, casually throwing it out there, and I was like, "No, you don't. No, it's a special thing. You don't just throw it out there."
So can I ask, are we Logan Sargent fan club president just because we're American, or how does that work?
Well, I mean, maybe there's some assumptions being made on my part, but you know. You tell me, how's it all going? What's the vibe around Logan Sargent over there? Is he already forgotten?
Well, I don't know if there ever was a vibe in the U.S. for Logan Sargent, but in the midfield, he actually got talked about more after he got fired because he wasn't good enough to be in the midfield to be talked about. So after he got fired, we're like, finally.
Because we don't talk about the top team. We don't talk about the bottom team. Everywhere else is the midfield, and Logan was never in the midfield. I don't think ever once in his career. He might have started there at the beginning of the season, and we're like, we'll give him a shot. Tank.
Great hope, but no deliver. Let's get into midfield stuff. So I want to get into, obviously, one thing I want to get into is you guys seem like you've been not lifelong, but a long time friends and maybe long time Formula One fans and recent time podcasters. So how does that stuff all come together?
Go ahead, Patty. I want you to tell us.
Yeah, well, it's true that Dan and I have known each other for, probably 20, 25 years and have been friends for 15 or so of those years.
Yeah.
A good chunk of them anyways, but
enemies for the first 5?
Yeah. Mortal enemies when we were Sprouts. Yeah, weird start for sure.
I hope this isn't the podcast where it all goes down and you're like, this is it. We're done now.
Oh, no. The bond is now can be unbroken. Never unbroken. Getting confused. Anyways, we both kind of got into Drive to Survive during the pandemic. And Dan, as always, gets really into things, especially when there's sports and especially when there's statistics involved. And so he got himself the Formula One app so he could watch all the archived footage because it turns out a program that broadcasts internationally is also pretty good at saving a lot of that footage as well. So when the internet rolls around, they just dump it all on the internet. Dan's been going back and rewatching stuff and gaining knowledge where I've just been kind of along for the ride. He started this podcast with his brother, who's way, way smarter and, more intellectual when it comes to actual talking points and stuff. But I just kind of weaseled my way in because it was my buddy and his brother doing something cool, and I wanted to hang out. So,
love that. And Dan, does that all check out, or would you like to contest any of those points?
Yeah, for the most part, that checks out. And whenever Patrick tells a tale, it's always about 90% true. So it's tough to find the 10% in there, and maybe I'll just leave the 10% a mystery. Let the listeners and the viewers, it's kind of like telling 2 truths and a lie.
Yes.
And with Patrick, it's like two truths and an exaggeration. You find it. But yeah,
it's tantalizing. It gets the juices flowing.
Yeah, it's always a good story coming from Patrick. So that was good. I started the podcast with my brother almost by accident last February. I remember it was when the Chinese Grand Prix was supposed to be on, and there was like a 3 or 4 week break without race cars.
Yep.
That's when we started our podcast.
Yep.
Brilliant timing. Turns out Adam from Fan Amp Fantasy did the same thing. Started his show like right then. I'm like, great, we're such good timing experts at this. And so it was my brother and I for maybe 10 episodes. His schedule got more full. I don't think he expected me to take it seriously.
Yep.
And so he's kind of like a couple weeks into this, like, oh man, this is too much. I didn't sign up for this. And I'm like, this is what I signed up for.
Yeah.
And so my brother kind of like chestnut checkers brought Patrick in. And I'm kind of like, yeah, I mean, Patrick's here for comic relief and stuff. And then pretty soon my brother leaves and Patrick's still there and we're talking race cars. And before you know it, Patrick's watched a full season and knows all the guys and knows who qualifies well. And he knows his stuff. So it's like, we just BS and Patrick's always off the cuff. And so you never know what you're going to get from Patty. And I think we make a good team because I like have the numbers. Patty has the emotion. And, as we've said, we're lifelong frenemies and in a good friendship zone after a rough start.
I think it's definitely the case that if you're going to put yourself out there, that it's good to have a mix of talents and strengths, let's say. And I know on our show, I remember Zach, after we did maybe 6 or 7 episodes, was like, I'm really enjoying being the comic relief on this show. And I was like, oh, I thought I was being the comic relief. I don't know what that says about our show, but we both thought we were the funny one. It's like, oh no, we're in trouble here. We're sinking. But all these years on, we're still doing okay. I guess there's the podcast. There's the let's start a podcast moment. And I get that. We had a similar thing when we started where there was a specific flashpoint that happened. We were like, we need to just talk. I need to talk to people about this. I need to talk and have people listen to me about this. But so did other people. So there were other podcasts that started literally the same weekend ours did. And the same thing, theirs lasted for 6, episodes, and ours is still going, I guess, 11 and a half years later. But, I think people who try to start don't always know what they're signing up for, which is fine. Mm-hmm. But the ones that stick around, that they really want to be there, which it sounds like you guys have gotten through that, which is great.
Yeah, it sounds like a really good time to just sit and talk race cars with your buddy. And then you get down and edit and try to figure out downloading and uploading and promoting and social media and being timely and being trendy. And I'm just sitting here like, man, this isn't all that much fun anymore. And so it's like, you got to do different things and find different ways. And like Patrick writes up the script for like what you see in the podcast notes in Spotify or Apple Pod, like all that's his writing. Cause I edit the show. And by the time I'm done editing, I'm like, you know what? I'm done. I don't care what this thing says anymore. And then Patrick writes up this elaborate write-up and it's perfect. It's like we each do our part, and as long as everyone's chipping in, it's still fun. It's still a hobby. But yeah, if you make it work and you make it a chore, you're not going to do it anymore because that's not fun.
I don't know that it's elaborate so much as it's pretty clear Dan is hands off. And most of the time doesn't even bother to read them.
I trust.
So I get away with anything I want.
Yeah, that's also a good spot. And I think if you can both have that little corner for yourself that's like, this is just mine, and the other guy's already said that he doesn't care about that, so I can do whatever I want here. I have a few little corners like that myself, so I get it. I get what it's like to just be like, this is my little naughty corner, and I can just be who I want to be with free of judgment, which is how it should be. And then, so there's the podcast moment, let's do one. And then there's this not barrier, but like constraint of midfield. So we're not going to talk about the leaders. We're not going to talk maybe, I guess, about the very back markers, the Logan Sargents and so on. The midfield, the hook, this is the hook. Let's talk about the midfield. Now, I don't know, but I can imagine going back a few years, having had a decade of Lewis Hamilton dominance and Max Verstappen dominance. Yeah. The mindset of someone new to the sport might be all the action is in the midfield. That's what you want to be focused on. So was that what you were thinking?
Yeah, this was, again, kind of my brother and I accidentally making a show because this was in, and I hate to even say his name because we don't talk about this gentleman on our podcast, but when Max Verstappen was dominating, the last 3 years, we get into F1, and I think 2020 was kind of the first year with COVID. There's nothing to do. Let's watch this. And then 2021, you start taking it seriously, or I did, and that was the greatest season we've seen in recent history, right? And then Max starts dominating, and he dominates again and again, and we're just sitting there like, everyone just talks about Max won this many races. He's won this many poles. He's done this. He's done this. He's like, I don't care. I saw the race.
It gets boring.
Can we talk about anybody else? Because the battle for 10th was really, really good.
Yeah.
And we didn't see it because I saw 85 high fives in the Red Bull garage.
Well, like, and one of the things we love to point out, we love to point out too during the race is whenever, even if it's not the top driver, it's like, could be Lando, could be Max, could be Charles. If somebody's a minute and a half ahead of everybody else, and then they come across the finish line, and that's all we watch is their celebratory, for first 3 corners, and it's like, dude, there's a huge battle going on for 8th place right now that we don't get to see.
Yeah, you have to go back and watch the onboard from Yuki Tsunoda versus Pierre Gasly or whatever it is, because no broadcast sees it, and so it was really, we were talking and we're like, we should start a show that doesn't talk about Max Verstappen, because every other show is half the show on him. And then, what else did we see this weekend? And it's like, how about we just fill the pie with everything else?
Yes.
And so
here we go. What are we looking at here?
We actually keep track. We actually keep track and penalize each other for
don't
saying names you're not supposed to say. That kind of stuff.
Amazing.
So that was really the genesis of the midfield, was like, I'm so sick of Max that I just want to have a show in existence that doesn't talk about Max. And now we're back into a great season again, so it's kind of hard for our brand, Anyway, that's how we started. Was there was a dominant driver, a Schumacher, Lewis Hamilton, and Max Verstappen, and we're like, hey, this can be pretty fun too. Everyone's complaining about how bad this sport is, but the top guy wins by half a minute, and then everything else is really close. Like, everything else is really good, and you just act like it's not good because it's not winning. Seems odd. So
no, I think it's good. It's definitely a healthy, well-rounded view of any sport, but especially this sport. It's where there's droughts, where you might have a driver winning 10 races in a row, all of them by 30 seconds. Who would even tune in for that? Or the people who are looking for alternate media. Well, I know, I would too. But, I mean, I survived my induction into Formula One was the Schumacher years, the 5 years of just dominance that he had. And I felt like if I could survive that, I could survive anything. Mm-hmm. But for sure, when people are looking for alternate sources of entertainment, the other angles, the other things to get excited about, the other things to watch, to keep, the narratives to keep in mind as you're watching the replay so you can follow it. And sometimes all you've got to go through it by is that timing tower down the left-hand side. I spend a lot of time looking at that. You guys probably do too.
Patty, I don't know about you, but I have a second screen for the live timing. F1 multi-viewer. They have a really good one, and it's got different features on if somebody's gaining on another driver. You can see an AI radio transcript. Like, they do it right. So that's not only do I watch the timing tower, I have a second screen for the timing tower.
I'm guessing Pat doesn't, though, by the reaction that you got.
Oh yeah, man, totally. I've got the timing tower and I don't take a nap through 20% of the races. Don't worry about it.
Well, I did wonder what your reaction was, because I had you guys in mind a couple of weeks ago when we were talking in our show, and I was like, man, the season's been really good. Lots of different winners, lots of action at the front.
Yeah.
And then thinking, but then what does that mean for how people perceive the midfield? I mean, I know the midfield it always generates action and story as in narratives, but when there is so many tantalizing narratives right at the front, are you ever like, let's just do an extra bonus show this week and call ourselves the front runners?
Yeah, it's definitely been tricky, and we've had to recently kick out McLaren. We had McLaren in the midfield for a while until they really took over. Yeah, see you later, and probably won't see it for a while. The way
I don't think so.
And so, but they were firmly in the midfield, especially with what we started the show. I was talking about how embarrassing Zach Brown and McLaren were. And I called him a used car salesman because he's this slick guy and charismatic, and he just didn't deliver.
Well,
In the beginning of 23, he did not deliver.
You flip-flopped, though.
I did, and I came around.
At the beginning of this year, you can go back in our episodes, and you say that you think that McLaren has the best driver pairing on the grid, and I disagree with you strongly because I think that Ferrari has the best driver pairing on the grid. And look where we are now.
Yeah.
Now, I still think there could be an argument made, but that Ferrari's just Ferrari. Like, that's their problem. That the problem's not necessarily with their drivers, it's with the car and their management. But
come on, Dan. That's a friendship ending accusation. Come on. Let's get riled up here.
Remember, I said Patrick speaks in two truths and an exaggeration. So I'm just used to it by now.
Well, I was gonna say he's also been putting up with my nonsense for 15, 20 years. So he's numb by now.
He just stretches the truth a little bit, and you just kind of
water off a duck's back.
Got to pick your battles. So we did have McLaren in the midfield. We obviously kicked them out, but like Ferrari and Mercedes are still firmly in there. Aston's obviously like the midfield team. Is it a coincidence? Our colors are the same as Aston colors. Yes, it is. But what is it? Is it tinfoil hat? And then V-Card is in there. Williams is coming in hot.
Yeah, they're amazing.
I mean, there has been weeks where like the Max versus Lando is really good, and we're just kind of sitting there like, hey, that was really good. But let's talk about the rest of it. That was also good. And kind of got a lie.
I bet the guy in fourth had a great view of that amazing battle in first and second.
Exactly. So there's times like that, but there's also been times where Lewis wins a race and Sergio wins a race. I'm just kidding.
And you claim those.
He has. But
we get to talk about Sergio because even though he is on the top team, he is the most midfield driver of all time.
Yeah. So
I think midfield's generous.
Yes, we miss out on the big battles up front, but there's also plenty to talk about.
No, like you guys, I get bored of it, and I don't want to talk about it. And there's times where I'm like, yep, let's just not even worry about it because everybody's heard about it, especially if you're not doing something 5 minutes after the race has just finished. It's like, that's old news. We've all moved on.
And also trying to like actually come up with a worthwhile segment on Kick Sauber is so tough. Because there's just nothing there. It's,
They seem to focus a lot on their TikTok content and, flashy video editing, especially Bottas. And it's like, if you put half as much effort into your powertrain and your aerodynamic, I mean, that car would be flying.
Yeah. Can we put the social team on the downforce?
Switch. Let's just switch.
See what happens.
What could, like, how could it be worse?
You got guys like me trying to design your powertrain. Yes. That's a great idea, guys.
Let's make it straight. I don't know. Let's make it look like a football.
Sounds good.
What could go wrong? I'm very interested to understand because for me, I've been following Formula One for 20-something years, podcasting about it for more than a decade. But for me, the big narrative of the last 10 years has been F1 moving into the States, being owned by Americans, American team, American drivers sometimes, and just the play that is being made for raising the profile of the sport in the States. So now I know you guys know about the sport. I know that you're advocates for it. But beyond the bubble that we all live in, beyond that bubble, what is the vibe in America? Because we're coming into American races. So do things stay on the radar throughout the whole year? Or does it sort of rise up when there's a race and then tail off again?
What do you think, Patrick? Because you're pretty unplugged from the F1 world.
I think that, I don't run into a lot of people that follow Formula One in my day-to-day. So when you see a lot of people at the races in the grandstands and stuff, I feel like a lot of those people are locals. A lot of those people are obviously huge fans that travel to the event and
rich.
And rich, absolutely, and the elite.
Patrick and I don't work at a law firm either.
Yeah, so we're not going. But I do think the sport
tickets.
I do think the sport is growing in popularity. I think, Drive to Survive is big. I think the successes that they've had with the races in America, I think if they keep it going, I just worry about, because Americans are so screwy with our politics and such that, like, we've got some big storms ripping apart the the southern part of our country right now, that it's like, oh, cool, let's, be racing super expensive cars and having these ridiculously expensive, things in the same region as just devastated areas. It's like, well, let's, we'll see what happens. But I don't know.
I guess that could be tough anywhere, any area. Like, I mean,
Right.
Australia is prone to bushfires. So, sometimes a few weeks before the race comes to town, half of my state is on fire. And it's like, really? We're all just going to forget that and go and buy a $12 beer and sit in our $900 grandstand seat and just cheer it up and say how great things are. It's a tough line to walk sometimes.
Yeah.
I don't think politics are going to take down F1. And I'm pretty confident because of what we've seen. If you remember Jeddah a few years ago, we don't need to get into the specifics of it because Jeddah will probably cancel me or something. MBS, I don't know what they're capable of, but I know. There's some politics behind the sport. So to answer your question with F1 in America, I don't run into a ton of casual F1 fans either, but it's just kind of, I think it's more recognized. Like, people know about it. They know of it. They know who Lewis Hamilton is, except for Howard Stern. If you saw his interview,
I was going to say, didn't Kamala Harris endorse Lewis Hamilton? What a weird thing to say.
Well, yeah, I mean, she picked. Anyway, I don't want to get into the politicals, but it was odd to me that Howard Stern didn't know who Lewis Hamilton was. I'm like, he's the most successful driver of all time. He's currently driving. U.S. is like you said, growing in popularity. But I guess I just don't see it in a day-to-day, like fantasy football, like the NFL, like college football. I mean, I live in Texas too, so everything is football in Texas.
Yeah.
I had an old coach that he was our youth baseball coach, but he was also the college football coach in town. So
Big ad.
He used college language with 10-year-olds, which was great. Anyway, there's two sports in Texas: football and spring football. That's kind of my life is football, and not a lot of people talk about F1, but I think people recognize it and they know Lewis Hamilton and they know what's happening, as opposed to F1. Like, is that the race cars? Is that what you mean? So I think it is growing. It's up and coming, and I think we're in a pretty good spot with it.
For a while in Australia, and it might have been the same over there, the profile of the sport was low enough that if you saw somebody else wearing like an F1 hat or a t-shirt or something, it was like, whoa, we need to talk right now about F1, because I never see people like you. I never see people who connect with the same thing as I do. So it became a real identity thing where people were very, very happy to put out there their love for this oddball little weird sport that no one really talks about. And I think that there was a certain outsider appeal to it in that way. But then as the sport grows, obviously it becomes for normies.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that they're necessarily tuning in all the time or follow all the driver moves or know all the stats the way that you probably do, Dan. Probably even way better than I do. So I'm not going
to.
But I guess one of the pains that I've seen online recently, and definitely keen to hear if you've seen this or what you think about it, is the pains of the clashing of the fans. The people who, like, I mean, you guys saw Drive to Survive and were like, hell yeah, I'm switched on to this. So did all sorts of other people. And now they're all online, but people seem to be butting heads. What do you mean you don't know that Jensen Button won the championship in Twitter? Like, it just, there's this weird clash at the moment of new fans who are Drive to Survive fans as though that's a bad thing.
Right.
I'm doing my part to try and tell people, everyone chill out. There's no wrong way to like this sport. Well, I guess there are, but most of the people who are being called out as being the wrong kind of fan are not. People are allowed to like photos of Lando Norris without his shirt on, and people are allowed to,
Heck yes, we are.
Heck yeah, let's go.
Hell yes, we are.
Let's get into these physique and let's spend the next 20 minutes talking about it. No, I mean, unless you're actually, putting forward something toxic or bad or divisive, which ironically a lot of the people who call out the Drive to Survive fans are doing,
Right.
there's nothing wrong. We don't have a problem here. And you can be as casual as you want. You can never have watched an F1 race, but be a fan of F1, in my opinion. What do you think?
Yeah, I think when I get online, especially to enjoy F1, it's kind of celebrating and also like kind of making fun of everybody equally.
Yes.
I don't really care who wins. When I saw George Russell win in Spa, I thought it was a groundbreaking, a career-making performance. And then that lasted 45 minutes, and he was DQ'd. But like, I went like, oh, he's disqualified. I don't care, good or bad. Like, I don't care if Lewis Hamilton wins the race or George wins the race. I want action. I want entertainment.
Yeah.
I want a good story. Because we're journalists now, right? We're podcasters. We just want a good story.
Yeah.
It was like when you were watching a game with your dad growing up, and you're like, "Who do you want to win?" And he goes, "I just want a close game." Maybe that's just a Midwestern dad thing, and my dad always said that. But like, that's what we want, is a close race. And when these fans get upset with each other because two cars ran into each other when they're going 180 miles an hour, like, that's going to happen. But they get mad at each other, like that person did it. Like, oh, you called, or if I make a joke about George, I make a joke about Charles Leclerc, people get mad. I'm like, I don't care. Like, I'm not disliking Charles Leclerc. I'm saying he did this one thing because it was funny. Okay, we call Carlos Sainz squishy boots because he cries so much. Okay,
His boots they just fill his whole suit up until his boots are soggy and squishy.
First of all, tell me I'm wrong, and then second of all, you get mad at me because I'm making a joke. Like, so I just see people like way too mad online. It's like, I don't get online to get mad. Maybe I did when I was younger and like to start fights and stuff, but it's like, I just want to say either nice things about people or funny things about people, and hopefully both. And hopefully other people enjoy it and talk with me and say, "You're right about that," or "I disagree." I get a lot of people that disagree. Like, Hells disagrees with me all the time, and I'm like, yeah, you're right. You would know about McLaren more than I would.
And
that's okay.
And Pat, what have been the things, Pat, in particular, that have happened this year where you were like, flashpoints, odd things that happen, and you're like, it's Pat's time to shine here?
I mean, I've come pretty close to a couple of bold predictions every now and then.
What are those?
Every now and then we just kind of throw guesses at the wall. Like,
Yeah.
I think Checo's going to hit the podium. I think that was kind of a close one we had recently. I think was it Bahrain? No, where were we, Dan?
Recently, Baku.
Checo podium.
Baku, that was it.
Yep.
Baku. Yeah, I put Checo on the podium.
Whoa.
And he was gonna be there, and then wrecked right at the very end. So very close, right there. But for me, I don't know. I kind of get away with, slipping past the gatekeepers because Dan has done the research.
Yes.
And I just hop on his back like a backpack, and we're good to go. So my whole thing is I like to just talk trash, and I'm going to talk trash whether I know about something or whether I don't. So,
or whether it's true or whether people care. I'll just say it anyway.
See what I'm saying? The exaggerations, people.
It's fighting words. That's all I'm saying. Fighting words.
He knows.
There's a thing that I have appreciated, especially about your online presence for Midfield Pod, is that you will share all of the FIA documents, whether there's a salient point that's like, everybody needs to pay attention to this because Lando Norris is going to get disqualified, or here's the FIA report about upgrades for all the teams for this race. No upgrades for any teams. I feel like I can rely on you guys to stay informed and updated about all that stuff.
That was, thank you for saying that.
And you're the man, Dano.
I appreciate that, because when I was getting on Threads, my brother, again, he's been anti-Twitter since Elon bought it, and I've tried to hang in there, and I've hung in there. And it's a losing battle. We all know it is. But I was hanging on to Twitter, and he started up a Threads account and started posting a little bit and gave me the password. So I started posting, and I'm like, how do I do something unique? How do I do something people want? And so I started doing two things: the countdown to
Yep, I see those two.
The race every day, like how many days until the next handful of races. And it's any races under 50 days. So if there's, if we're in a big break, it's like 2 dates. If we're in a triple header, it's 5 races. When are these coming up? So I do that one every day. And then the other one I realized I want is the FIA documents. And so what I did was found FIA Docs bot on Twitter and just hit a little notification, get a message anytime they post something. And so, there's stuff that gets posted at 3 a.m. and I don't post it right away because I like to sleep at that hour. But you're right. When they say race director's event notes, paragraph 17 updated, I'm posting that. Like, nobody cares, but I'm posting it. And I started posting everything, and I asked Threads, I'm like, hey, do you guys even look at this? Because I don't. I just post it because I hope somebody will look at it.
It's here if you want it or need it.
Exactly. If somebody wants it, they can have it. But if you don't, like the silly things, I'm not going to post.
Yeah, sure.
Nobody's looking at it. And back to Hills, they go, can you just post everything? And I'm like, why? They say, well, I want to read it. I want to know the information. I want to know paragraph 17 was changed. And so they'll update documents, and I'll tag Hells, be like, tell me what's different. And they'll tell me immediately, like, they put Logan Sargent on there when actually it was Franco Colby.
Yes, that was a good
one. That one was funny. I like that. But like, Hells told me to do it, and they said they want more information, and we ended up calling it like chicken soup for the F1 soul or something. And so now when I post the stupid race director's update, Hells says, more chicken soup, thank you. So it's like,
Hells is a good barometer. Hells is a good barometer for what the hardcore fandom wants. So I would trust anything they say. I want more of this. I would do it. I was looking into it recently because there was back and forth tit-to-tat about, I think it was about the Perez and Sainz decision, and I was trying to unpack why they ruled the way they ruled on the incident, because I didn't think it was the right ruling. But it's important to understand what they said and why they ruled the way they did. So if we're all going to chirp off about it online, you need to know what was actually said, because you might be saying something that directly contradicts what they've said. And I think I looked for your post about it.
That's the thing, though, Rod, is you don't you don't have to know anything. You can just sound off, especially on the internet. It's a free playground. You can say or do whatever you want.
I know there's nothing stopping you from typing it and hitting post, but I guess I'm thinking about a thoughtful, mindful interaction and exchange of ideas. That's not what you were talking about.
No.
I like that there's this after dark element to you, and you're really delivering a lot.
Can you tell I run the Threads account?
I know who wants to run the Threads account. Maybe you need 2 accounts. Both branded Midfield Pod, Midfield and Midfield Extra.
Yep. Or like just both the same password, and then the user gets to decide who's posting what. Something off the hinges, and like, oh, Patrick logged in.
Look, I mean, I've been posting online on Threads and other previous accounts for a long time, and I don't know what my take is or why people would follow me. I just sort of, some days I'm informative, some days I'm argumentative, or some days I'm funny. Sometimes I'm funny. Most of the time I'm just like, I have a new thing that I want you to watch. Come watch it. So I don't know. I'm working this out.
I think that was kind of my original niche, is like, I'm going to post whatever I like. And I'm kind of like, you're not really going to reach an audience by just doing whatever you want. Like, what do fans want? So I just tried to create, and I've talked with Ashley, who's a good friend of ours, and she works in social media, and she's helped us kind of promote and grow our presence. And I'm like, hey, what can I do that's every day or that's consistent, that people are going to see it whether they like it or not? And now when people see my countdown, hopefully they're like, oh yeah, another midfield countdown, whatever. Because it's so ingrained that every single day I'm going to post that stupid countdown that it's just habit. It's part of your day. It's part of the routine, and that's what we want to do is like be part of your routine. Hey, Wednesdays I can go grocery shopping and listen to these two idiots talk about whatever. We're just trying to hang out.
Even if it's an automated thing, though, it just keeps you in the habit of being mindful of, I should log in and post something. And that's just honestly sometimes all it takes. Like showing up is sometimes enough. And then eventually you'll work out, here's this automated thing, but also while I'm here, what do you guys think about this thing? And it goes from there.
Yeah. We've talked about
What about the future, where you want to take things? Is there something that you're like, I see other people doing this and I'd love to try and do that?
I would like to try to get tickets to the Paddock Club.
Are we going to be groveling to the admins now? Can I get a Paddock Pass, please?
Yeah, I don't know, Patrick. What do you have? I know Patrick wants to get into stickers.
Oh, yeah.
But that's his big idea, and he's had the same idea for 6 or 9 months, and he's still.
I'm a good storyboard guy.
He's got concepts of an idea.
You're an idea generator.
The idea guy.
Yeah.
But what are these stickers like catchphrases, your catchphrases, or just ones that are in the ether?
We got the logo for the midfield.
Yep. Okay.
And then we've got one drawn up already, but it's a pair of, and we're gonna have to obviously adjust the color. But right now they are red boots with the yellow badge behind them, and it says an SB in the fancy lettering, and one of the boots is tipped over with
tears coming out.
Yes.
Got it.
It's instead of the prancing horse, it's boots, and it's yellow with the cursive. So instead of Scuderia Ferrari, it's squishy boots. So I think we kind of missed. Yeah, we probably missed the timeline on that because he's only going to be in the Scuderia for another 2 months. So. Yeah, that was a great idea in concept. And,
but we can just change the color and switch them up and put them in some Williams boots. They're going to be every bit as wet. They're going to be wetter. Are you kidding me? That's a Williams.
Something that's something that can flex as drivers move around. I mean, like we all pull one out for the poor guy who edits the opening montage because every other week there's a different driver that he's got to sub in, or you see those photos of was it Franco Colapinto where they clearly put his head on top of someone else's body.
Yes,
we've just got to be able to adapt and roll with the punches. So we need designs that last.
Exactly. So I think that's like what you said is adapt. That's what we're trying to do is show up every week. And I don't know if I have grand plans for the show, but it's like, yeah, I'd like to have more listeners and more viewers and things like that. But is that really what it's about? Like every time I say that, I'm like, I didn't start the show to get 1,000 followers.
Yeah.
No, yes, it is. It's all about
lots more.
It's about selling ads and having those ad people send
I guess
you
that's
their
true.
stuff. That's what it's all about.
If I could feed my family by talking about race cars, that'd be great. Yeah. And right now we're just shy of that mark. Patrick and I both work full-time jobs and have our own respective families. So we're just shy of the mark.
Just shy.
But
we rely heavily on both of our Patreon followers.
Yeah, we love our Patreon followers.
That's great.
Yeah, and we're trying to grow that. And patreon.com/midfieldpod. And so that's really what we're trying to do is grow the pod and show up every week. And it's if you focus on growth, I think you're going to stumble. If you focus on doing the little things and showing up every week, you're going to do a lot better. And so when I try to get in perspective, it's like, hey, Patrick and I are just talking race cars. Because I'll try to over prepare and write up a script and write up these questions. And Patrick's like, man, I'm just going to show up. So like, whatever. And sometimes I need more of that where it's just like, just show up and talk race cars and it's going to turn out. And the growth and the perfection and things like that will come in time.
I've always said for us that we need to be enjoying what we're doing first, because if we don't enjoy it, there's no way anyone listening is going to enjoy it or watching is going to enjoy it. So if and also we already touched on this, but sometimes it's just a grind. So if you're not enjoying it yourself, when those grindy bits grind hard, when the grinding is grindy-ish, it's going to just wear you away and you're just going to be like, done with this. I'm getting nothing out of this. But no, I mean, I think it's really great to hear more people starting up podcasts. It's always good because no one should be a gatekeeper for who should or shouldn't start a podcast. But you've clearly got past the hump. I think you've got the right mindset of like, we're doing it so that we enjoy it, and we're putting things out there that we would want to see and listen to, which is, I just think that's the secret, and you can't lose if you do that.
Yeah, I think that's the name of the game, is trying to put out something that we would consume as fans, or we would enjoy as fans.
What do you think, Pat? I mean, I can see you sitting there thinking, man, we're going to be talking about the winners. We're going to be having drinking challenges during the games. We're going to be, during the matches, the races. I mean, obviously you're enjoying it. Obviously this is something you want to keep doing. But if you could change one thing, or if there's something you'd want to do beyond stickers, what would it be?
I mean, honestly, right now it's really great because it's something that is not American sports scheduled out. It's all year round.
Absolutely.
And it's something I can connect with my best friend Dan with. He lives in Houston. I live in Wisconsin. They're on opposite ends of the United States, and it's we get together online and get to see each other and talk smack with each other for a couple hours and stay in touch via text message about our plans for the pod and ideas that we have and stuff like that. So it's just been a really kind of a cool way for he and I to stay in touch. And for me that's all it really ever has been, and all I ever needed to be is just talking race cars with my buddy.
Just hang out.
As the guy who started the podcast with a good friend who lived in the same city as me, who then moved to London, I can relate that, it's a great way to stay in touch with someone who's on the other side of the world.
Yeah.
Although as we found out, scheduling times can be hard. I want to just say again publicly, thank you so much for the time. I want to also throw it open for you guys to promote Patreon, just threads or podcast feeds, anything you want to promote.
Yeah, I think the floor is yours. You were asking us, I was just thinking about it, like what's new, what's coming, what's a goal. And I think one thing that we've kind of been focusing on for the last year is like, how can we create different content, more content other than just a podcast? And so back to Hells again, they practically created our show for us, but Hells and Casper made the P10 challenge of picking the driver who finishes P10. What's more midfield than that? So of course, Patrick and I take the game way too seriously. We lost the lead.
Seriously.
We blew it. We're sitting in second, maybe even third. And so we've recorded, because we talk about it, we'll text back and forth picking our P10 pick for the week, and it's usually right before quali. And I'm like, hey man, how about we get on a show and record it and talk for 10 minutes and pick our guy? Mm-hmm. So we've done that. We put that on Patreon, and I think that's a really cool video to just like, one, see the thought process of maybe two idiots, but also like two informed idiots on the midfield. Because like I don't know if many other pundits know more about the midfield than us. I don't know if that's bragging or not, because it's the midfield. Why would you care about the midfield? Anyway,
I was going to say certainly none care as much.
Care. That's a good word.
You're invested.
Care. So we've been working on that. The P10 picks, we drop it like just before quali starts every weekend. It's on our Patreon page, and the page is free. So you do not have to pay us money if you want to see our bonus content. If you want to throw in a donation, we greatly appreciate a monthly donation to help support the pod. But really that's been our big new project is the Patreon and getting new stuff up there for people to listen to and content. So the P10 picks, we throw up our podcast episodes 12 hours early on Patreon. So that's kind of nice if people want to listen. We would drop it around this time. So for you, if you want to listen midday on Friday in Melbourne, you could. And so, just doing little things like that. And the Patreons are our new fun toy, our new big thing. And so if we're trying to grow and accomplish something next, I think it's putting up good content consistently on Patreon. So those are my thoughts.
I think that's excellent. And I think it's also healthy and always fruitful to be just thinking about what could we try else and not being too ingrained in this is our thing. And if this isn't working, we're never going to change.
Right.
If it's adding another thing, if it's tweaking what you're already doing, just always experimenting and then just finding what you like and what works, do more of that. It's really not too hard. But yeah, no, I think you guys are doing great. I just wanted to say again, yep, go ahead.
I was going to say people can also reach out to us directly if they'd like at the Midfield Pod at Gmail or Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or Threads or anywhere you can find us on any social media platform that we can get our hands on or try to figure out because we're, kind of old and dumb when it comes to the internets. But
Yeah, reach out if you have ideas or feedback or whatever. We are open ears, open arms. Midfield's open to everyone. No gatekeeping here.
Everyone's welcome in the midfield. I love that. Guys, we'll wrap it up there, but thank you so much for the time. I'm sure everybody who has never heard of you before, but follows us will be investigating you now, if only to get all those FIA docs, those sweet, sweet FIA docs.
Oh, they're so good.
It's so good to talk to you and connect to you, but thank you so much for the time, and we'll talk again soon, I hope.
Yeah, I hope so. I think we found a new friend for the midfield, and hopefully we've got some room on our show to talk to you. And
yeah, that would be great.
Keep this thing going. We had a good time.
It's quite obvious in terms of podcasting. We're all from the midfield, so it's great that it's an inclusive space.
Exactly. And one caveat I want to say about the midfield: do not come to our show and expect a great show. We are very midfield.
It's mediocre at best, baby.
As long as we temper expectations, we'll be okay.
And that's the promise.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks,
Rob.
guys.
Yes. Thanks a ton, man.